Hello, and welcome to the first episode of I Just Want to Be Included. I am so happy you are with us today. I am very excited. My first guest is a longtime friend. She has an incredible story to share, several stories to share about her parenting journey. She is open and honest, and I think you'll truly appreciate her insight and her experience. Please note that we are talking about mental health issues, child protective services, and child estrangement. Pretty heavy topics, but as always, I hope you will listen with an open mind and an open heart, have some compassion. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of vulnerability to come and talk about things that have happened and things that we could have done differently as parents. And as always, when we listen to these episodes, please do not take anything that we say as professional advice. Everything said is based on our own personal thoughts, opinions, experiences in our lives. Everyone's family is different. Every situation is different. Please always seek professional help in your community to deal with whatever issues you or your child are facing. Enjoy the episode. Have you shared that story and to talk about lots of different topics.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think that talking about it is very good because we all want to just be included and we all want to know that we're not alone going through whatever we're going through. So
absolutely.
Perfect.
Yep. And I just wanted to tell people up front, this is a pretty serious topic because we're talking about child protective services entering into your life. But me and you have known each other for a very long time.
Yes.
There will be laughter because that's what we do. That's how we deal with things. So it's a serious topic, but there will be some lightheartedness and some laughter because we just have that kind of relationship, and you've had time to kind of recover a little bit from the situation. And you have a book that you've written about this whole story. So if people want to check out that book, what is the title?
Yeah, the book is called The Comeback Kid: How I Survived the Loss of My Daughter, Who Is Still Alive. And by that, I mean that my daughter is basically out of my life completely. I haven't seen her, talked to her, except what I could find on the internet by stalking my own child
right.
in over 6 years. So she's 22 now, and she was 16 when she was taken away from me. And when the social services intervened. The book, like I said, is called The Comeback Kid. It's by Lisa Marie King, which is my name. So
yes. And that's available on Amazon, right?
Yes, Amazon. And to find it, just look up The Comeback Kid, Lisa Marie, and you'll find it pretty easily. So
perfect.
It's a good read. It's just kind of like, me talking, Veronica, for hours and hours like I can do. So
we can definitely do that, can't we?
Yeah.
All right. So I want to start your story with you getting a phone call one evening, and it was pretty late at night, right?
Yes. Yeah. So a little background on that. I have one child. She's a daughter, single child. We got divorced when she was 8. I had to move away from where her father lived when she was 10. But we only moved about an hour and a half away, so I was still able to get her over there to see him. When she was 11, she was in a mental hospital for a week because she was threatening to kill herself at 11 years old. And when she was 12, she moved back in with her father, so she moved away from me.
Right.
And then at 16, I got a phone call in the middle of the night. I've only seen my daughter 11 times between the ages of 12 and 16.
Wow.
And I haven't seen her since she was 16 at all. So
yeah,
after the call, it's funny because she was talking about wanting to move back in with me, honestly. And so it seemed like we were getting out of the woods. It's one of those things where the worst things that happen to you in life, it seems like you don't expect them.
Right.
Excuse me.
Absolutely.
They just happen when you least expect it. And when you're dreading something and you're worried about something, that's usually when everything will be fine.
Right.
But I thought everything was getting much better, actually, because she was talking to me more. She wanted to move in with me. And then all of a sudden I get a call And, she lived in an 818 area code. So I always thought, well, if it's an 818 number, I'll pick it up no matter what time.
Yep.
And it's one of those things that's seared in my memory that's going to live with me for the rest of my life and into eternity. And the phone was sitting on the couch. I saw it ringing at an 818 number coming in, and it was 12:18 at night. I remember vividly that it was 12:18 at night. So April 18th, 2017, it was a Tuesday, early morning. And I pick up the phone and the man says, is this Lisa Marie King? And I said, yes, how can I help you? And the man says, I have your daughter. I'm a social worker and I'm taking her into custody. My first thought about Veronica was, what did she do? What did she do?
Right.
What kind of, and I find it ironic that I thought she must have fallen into a bad crowd, because we always think that our children can't think of anything bad by themselves, right?
Right.
It must be the influence of other bad people.
Right.
They didn't decide to rob a car, steal a car by themselves. They must have had help. And then he said, no, we're protecting her. And I said, from what?
Right.
Thinking, well, what does she need to be protected from? I knew her father for a very long time, right? He was married to the man for 13 years.
Yeah.
Knew him for about 3 or 4 years before we got married. And I knew what kind of man he was. Sure, he wasn't father of the year, but I wasn't mother of the year. And I just never expected he would do anything, which, I don't believe he ever did. I don't think that this is a case of me just not knowing about any kind of abuse. I think it's a case of they believed my daughter above anything else. So, and that's a common thread, I think, that's happening lately, because social services, they do want to protect the children, and they're absolutely, that's their job. That's what they are supposed to do.
Yeah.
To protect kids. And they took my daughter, like I said, away. What happened was they came over to my ex-husband's house on Monday night at 10 o'clock at night. It was an emergency social worker and 3 cops.
Okay.
And 2 cops talked to him downstairs, and the social worker and another cop were talking to my daughter upstairs in her room.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny because my mind made me think that this was perfectly a normal situation.
Right.
Yeah. This happens every day.
Yeah.
Right. But when I'm back to the phone call, I know I'm jumping around, but back to the phone call, when I was on the call with the man, I asked to hear from my daughter, because at that moment, Veronica, the only thing that I could cling to, I needed some kind of proof that this was real.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't know what was going on. Things were getting better. I thought we were getting out of the woods, and then it felt like, you're out in the middle of the ocean and somebody puts a hole in your boat, and now you're treading water and you're trying to swim, and you don't know what is going on.
Yeah.
And I had to hear her voice. And so I understand a little bit better why people need to see their child if their child's been hurt or, God forbid, killed in some kind of serious way, because it's hard to believe when you hear something so unbelievable. It's the unimaginable, like that song in Hamilton, we push away the unimaginable.
Absolutely.
We don't want to believe it.
Yeah.
We cling to what's normal to us.
Yeah.
And we push away the unimaginable. And I never could have ever, you've known me for almost my entire life, and we never could have imagined, either one of us, going through something like this. And
no, absolutely not.
So like I said, the voice of my daughter was what helped me to solidify it, at least in my mind for the moment. So my mind was clinging to some kind of reality by seeing, okay, this is real because I heard my daughter's voice.
Yeah.
But my mind was also trying to tell me this is perfectly normal. Everyone else goes through this too.
Right.
To try to help me feel like I wasn't completely insane and crazy and on this island all by myself.
Right. So, and talk about, they didn't let you have a conversation with your daughter, right? It was like you had to kind of demand, I need to hear from her. But it wasn't like you got to have a conversation. You got to talk to her. It was like a very quick thing, right?
Well, and I think that was partially from her as well. She did not want to talk to me.
Right.
And the man at first says, I don't think I can put her on the phone. I said, put my daughter on the phone. I said, very
Yeah.
sternly and very upset, because I just did not know what was going on. I was clinging to whatever reality I could find,
Right.
And so she gets on the phone with me, and she just briefly says hello, and I'm yelling her name, and I'm saying, what's going on, and
Yeah.
what's are you okay? And I gotta go, Mom. No, don't go, get back here, Ella, come on.
Yeah.
And the guy gets back on the phone and says, you will be at court on Friday, won't you? And I said, of course. I don't know where I'm going, I don't know why I'm going, but of course. Wherever you
I'll be
need
there.
Yeah. I'll just tell work I got to take a day off,
But your mother instinct is, wherever you need me, I will be.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would pay whatever you need me to do, whatever money, it doesn't matter. It's your child. And going through this kind of loss of a total loss of somebody that's still alive, especially this close of a relationship. I mean, I think what it does to you as a person is it makes you value your relationships with other people, but the loss of a relationship with other people doesn't seem as scary anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I know eventually my parents, who are, God blessing me, God's blessed me with parents that are still alive.
Yeah.
I know eventually they'll both pass away, like everyone does, but I know that I'll be able to handle it, and I'll be able to get through it because I've gotten through this.
Yeah. You survived like the worst case scenario in your mind.
Right. And that's kind of like, I guess what people do with fear sometimes too, is that once you get over something that's horrible, you can live your life a little less fearful, because you know that it can't get much worse than that, but maybe it can. Who knows?
Yeah. You don't really want to ask that question sometimes, because you never know.
That, and don't ask for patience. Trust me. Don't recommend that at all.
Gotta be like, we'll work on patience.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right, so let's talk about, you got the phone call, and then you showed up in court. Did anything happen in between you getting that phone call and you showing up in court? Was there any kind of conversation? Was there any kind of information given to you? Did you have anything to go on at that point?
Only from my ex-husband before I got to court. And my ex-husband gave me an email in the middle of the night. And this is the funny part about going through something like this. You're in shock. You're basically in shock. I mean, my first thought, honestly, was, who am I going to call at 12:30 at night after I got off the phone call? Yeah. And the other thought was, maybe I'll go to Taco Bell and get some food.
Go for the comfort.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't even know why I thought about that, because I was finishing up a bowl of soup I had earlier from dinner that I bought earlier. So why do I want Taco Bell? I don't know, but I even thought about going for a walk. I mean, I never go for a walk at 12:30 at night, but I had no idea what to do.
You're in crisis mode.
Yeah, you're in shock, and your body's just
looking for something. And so it's interesting that Brian sent you an email.
Yes.
Do you think that's because he just couldn't get the words out of his mouth?
Brian's my ex-husband, my daughter Ella's father. And Brian did send the email, and he was basically explaining everything. Now, Brian and I did not have a really great parting of ways when he decided to take our daughter at 12 years old. Basically accused me of not being a very good parent, because she was, missing school. She missed 45 days of school in 1 year with me. So I don't look like a good parent on paper.
Right.
I really don't. I mean, I wanted to be a good parent. I really did. But the personalities between me and my daughter was just too difficult for me to stand up and be the strong disciplinarian I needed to be with her. Mm-hmm. Because I'm a very codependent, passive, aggressive personality. So the passive side usually was where we were.
You knew your place in that relationship.
Yeah, I did.
All right. So he sent you an email, basically, number one, because you guys were not on good speaking terms at that point. Is that fair to say?
No, I mean, I think he sent the email just because he just didn't know how to say it in words, like you said before. We were talking fairly decently.
Okay.
At that point, But he was a little disappointed that Ella wanted to move in with me now. He basically,
Right.
I almost think he saw it like a tug of war or something, like,
Yeah.
now you win.
Yeah.
I never saw parenting like that. I wanted to parent with him,
Right.
we're
But
both
that's
in
probably
this together.
that's probably a common feeling in a divorce situation where kids are
Yeah.
involved, right? I would think that's
Yeah.
very common.
Yeah. And, I mean, I think that sometimes parents do play a part in the fact that, I mean, I can't deny the fact that he probably played a part in the fact that I only saw my daughter 11 times
Right.
while she lived with him. And I mean, I don't mean 11 times in 1 year. I mean, 11 times in 4 years. I mean,
Yeah.
I had a couple of
Yeah.
years that went by where I didn't see her at all in a whole year. I remember in
Wow.
2015, I finally had a breakdown and I said, Brian, I need to see my daughter. And he said, well, Lisa, do you want to see her or do you just think you should want to see her? I said, I have not seen her since, and I gave the time and the date.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not telling you. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. I need to see my daughter.
Yeah.
I need to see her. So,
Yeah.
and he facilitated a visit at a park for an hour. I felt like I was on a visit, one of those supervised visits because he
Right.
literally waited in the car.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to hurt her. I just need to see my child.
Right. Right.
That felt really difficult. And that was when she was only she must have been about 13 or 14 years old. I think 14 at that point. So,
yeah. So there's a lot of backstory here that fit into the situation happening. And you're going to be a frequent guest on the show because we have lots to talk about.
Frequent flyer, yeah.
Frequent flyer,
I'll
like
keep
that.
my card handy, my punch card, get a free soda at the end of it, right?
Absolutely. I like that. So, Brian sent you an email explaining what happened.
Yes,
and
sorry.
then that's okay. It's all good information. That's all right. So before you went to court, did you hear from social services? Did you hear from anybody besides Brian?
I know that they called me very frequently, but I can't remember if it was before court or after court.
Okay.
I know that I was talking to I talked to the emergency social worker, the gentleman that called me the first night a few times, and he turned out to be a very nice man. In fact, he's the one that asked me, just caringly asked me if I had any family nearby. And I said, yes, Ella and Brian.
Right.
Those
the
are
two people very much involved.
Yeah, very much involved in this situation, this case. And he said, but I said, I do have a strong church. I have a strong relationship with my church.
Yeah.
And he says, so you're a woman of faith? And I said, I'd like to think so. And he said, well, then you're never really alone, are you? And that struck me and has stayed with me until this very moment because, that's part of the reason why I'm still standing today is because of my faith and because of the fact that God got me through this. And that's the one good benefit out of this is that it does strengthen your faith. You have to have something to rely on. You have to have something to fall back on.
Absolutely.
In my book, I talk about it like a fire drill. Sometimes you have fire drills at work or school to show you where to go if there's an emergency.
Right.
And you have to know where you're going to fall in an emergency in your own life.
Right.
And I was lucky enough to have a faith that I could fall back on because
I like that analogy. That's a very good analogy. I do. I like that.
Thank you. I wrote that.
All right. Yes, you did. All right. So talk about when that first time you went to court. Did you know what to expect? What happened? Kind of how did that play out?
I had no idea what to expect. It was very funny. So the social worker, you're right. I did talk to the guy before I went to court because he gave me some helpful hints about going to court.
Oh, good.
He told me that the courthouse was close to UCLA and that sometimes the departments or the rooms, in courthouses, they call them departments, do not coincide with the number of the floor that they, like the first number won't be the number of the floor.
Interesting.
So, he tells me that. So I pull up, I have to be at court at 8:30 in the morning. And you know me, I'm not the most punctual person ever.
And you're living in California where the traffic is a nightmare.
It's horrible. There's about 50,000 friends on the road with me at that point.
Yeah.
So it was pretty bad. And I drive over, I leave my apartment around 7:20, 7:15, and I thought I'll be perfectly fine. I had $1 bill in my pocket, and I thought, well, maybe I should go to the bank and grab a 20. Thought, no, who doesn't take who doesn't take credit cards these days, right?
Right.
Not gonna have a problem, right? So I drive over, get to the courthouse, pull up a long, windy driveway to the parking structure, and see a sign that says cash only,
Nice.
$6. So I am out of luck. I don't have cash to pay for the parking. You have to pay for it before you can walk in the building. So I pull up and I ask the lady if I can write her a check.
Right.
She says, no, I'm sorry, sweetie, I can't accept a check. A credit card, I can give it to you. You can just give it back to me later. I mean, you know, whatever you want.
Here's my collateral.
Yeah. I will come back, I promise. You know, but she said, no, but there's a gas station down the street, you know, right on the corner down there. So I said, okay, fine. And so I was actually doing really good that day, Veronica. I was 5 minutes early.
That's good for you. That is really good for you.
Yeah. Well, after all this stuff with the money, I was late, but you know, I had to go down to the gas station, grab a 20. I grabbed $40 just to be safe and came back and had to park. But it was funny because when I finally got up to we were both waiting there, and it was kind of comforting to see Brian, even though he was my ex-husband, because he and I were the only two people that pretty much were involved in this from the very beginning, you know.
Yeah.
And he and I waited until they said that the departments were ready. So the courthouse was running late, so everything was fine. I actually went downstairs and grabbed us both something to eat and drink, like, you know, coffee and some kind of snack for breakfast. And I saw that Brian barely touched his coffee and barely touched his snack. So I knew that, you know, this was really affecting him personally.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've seen him change a lot. You know, he's not the person that he was before this. And I guess that's what happens to all of us. I mean, I'm not the person
that is
before
true.
this started either.
Yeah.
And so when they finally called, you know, said that the assignments were ready, that we could go up there and see where we needed to go, I noticed a huge sign that said all the department numbers and all the floors they were on. So, like I said, sometimes the department's not on the same floor as the first number. So 405, for example, is on floor 3, and 410 is on floor 4. Well, I can read the big sign. So I get up there and I ask the lady, you know, I tell the lady my daughter's name. She says, oh, okay, do you guys have attorneys? And I said, well, my ex-husband paid for his own attorney. I said, I don't want an attorney. I don't need one. She said, no, you'll need an attorney. And I said, no, this is just my kid. I don't need an attorney.
Right.
She says, no, we will assign an attorney for you. We will appoint an attorney for you. So I need an attorney. And it felt so strange because I just walked up there and said, no, this is my daughter. I don't need an attorney for this. Not even in trouble. You know,
right. Because at this point, you're thinking the accusations been made against the ex. Like you didn't feel like you were in danger of being accused of anything or losing anything in this situation. So you just didn't see the need for an attorney.
No, yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, this is just Ella, you know, she's just playing the game, right?
Right.
We're just playing the make-believe here, you know, and I guess that's what I was thinking. And so they did appoint me an attorney.
Okay.
And we all had our attorneys, but going back to the phone call, the night of the phone call, it was funny that, you know, you were talking about the email that I got from Brian. Well, I got on the phone with my aunt. I have an aunt that lives in Texas, and she's my person that I call in the middle of the night when something's terribly wrong.
Gotcha.
So I tried calling her twice because she was sleeping, and I woke her up on the second call. And so I got on the phone with her, and I'm telling her what happened, and I noticed that I got the email from Brian, and I read it to her, and she says, well, have you talked to him yet? And I said, no. And I said, do you think he's awake? And she said, can you sleep right now? I'm like, no, I guess not. You know, so there's that reality kicking, you know, the brain is thinking, oh, it's 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. He's not going to be awake.
Right.
But, you know, your whole world is just imploded. So I think he's going to be, I don't think he can
probably likely to be awake.
Yeah. You know, so it's been an interesting journey. It's been very interesting. It's been over 6 years now, or, you know, since the phone call. about 5 years since court. And
Yeah.
the big thing for me now that I'm going through is just trying to keep on going,
Right.
Um,
So talk about, because one interesting aspect of your story is that you made the decision very quickly to support your ex and to stand by his side,
yeah.
which probably doesn't happen a lot in family court, to be honest. It's probably not
No.
something they're used to, but talk about how you made that and why you made that decision.
I know that, like I said before, my daughter was in a mental hospital when she was in the 5th grade. I know that the paperwork from the mental hospital, there was a doctor visit that she had to do when she was being released, and the doctor wrote down in his notes that the child said there was no abuse, no physical, emotional, mental, sexual abuse. So I've known my ex-husband for a long time. I
Mm-hmm.
know that we did have a friend that was involved in some child pornography that got fired from his job for that. And I know we had a conversation about that man being around our daughter.
Right.
And we both were on the same page that he's not going to be around our daughter
Yeah.
ever,
Yeah.
because we just didn't want that to be in our child's life.
Mm-hmm.
So just knowing him, knowing the kind of person he was, knowing how he was with her, knowing that, there's been times when I've seen him just jump out, there was that time that I wrote about in the book where we were in Culver City and we were at a friend's house and my mother flew in from Ohio and was, staying with us and visiting us. And she took a taxi to the friend's house and she was going to drive my daughter home in my car. We both drove separate cars and she got lost. So
Yeah.
when the phone died on that incident, my ex-husband ran out the door faster than I could put on my flip-flops.
Right.
And he was trying to chase down his kid. He was
Yeah.
adamant about finding his daughter.
Yeah. So there was
And
no doubt in your mind that whatever accusation had been laid against him was not true. There was no truth behind it.
no, there wasn't any doubt for me because I also knew the stuff that she was saying about me. She was saying
Right.
that, I was a very lenient parent. I was a very indulgent parent, but she said that I was a neglectful parent, that I neglected her, that I just, she said things like that. She said things that I was mentally incompetent and, I've been able to hold jobs for many years. I've been able to keep
Right.
my apartment, keep rent paid
Right.
every month. So these are things that a mentally competent person can do, right? Not a mentally incompetent person. So
Yeah.
she was saying that I knew the things that she was saying about me couldn't be true and were not true.
Right.
So to me, you can't take part of the truth and consider part of it truth and part of it lies.
Right.
It's either all, I know the kind of things that she said. I know the incidents she talked about. I talked to Brian about them, and he said, no, that's not how it happened.
Right.
She took innocent incidences and turned them into something vile.
Yeah.
There was one time that she was taking a shower, and it wasn't, he wasn't trying to do anything, but he had to open the bathroom door. If a child's in the shower, the child would ask us what when she was sitting next to us. Sometimes she didn't hear you or she didn't want to hear
Right.
you,
Yep.
So you have to open the bathroom door ever so slightly, or at least enough that you can yell into the bathroom, hey, I'm going out to the store, or whatever he was
Yeah.
doing,
Yeah.
So she turned that into, he opened the bathroom door and was filming her.
Oh, geez.
So, just adding a couple words to that makes it something vile instead of the
Right.
truth. And that's the scary part about it, because she took truths and turned them into something that was different from what it
Yeah.
really was.
Yeah.
She took some information that was true and mixed in lies and got this soup of whatever you want to call this, that turned out to be stuff that she could accuse us of. And apparently the system thought it was dangerous enough that they took her away.
Yeah.
I did have several conversations with social workers, and I tried to ask if I could see her, and they would always tell me that she just was adamant about not seeing her parents. So because my 16, 17-year-old daughter did not want to see us, which, how many people
That's
at
pretty
that
typical.
age? Yeah.
Mom and dad are not your favorite person, even in the
No,
best circumstances.
right. Because she didn't want to see us. We could not see her.
Yeah.
They would not allow that. So
Wow.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the court. I know you went to, how many times did you go to court in total? Do you know?
I went to court 6 times,
Okay.
6 different times. Yeah.
And what were those court proceedings like? What was the purpose of them? Did they accomplish anything?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Not really sure what we
That's fair.
accomplished. I think all we ever did, Veronica, honestly, was figure out when we were going to meet again. You know,
Okay.
they asked, the judge would talk about something real quickly, and then he would ask everybody, okay, what's your schedule like? When can we meet again? I think a lot of things happened behind closed doors that we weren't even privy to.
Wow.
So, yeah, the biggest thing that happened was in June, we had a paper that she wanted us to sign. Her representatives came up with this deal where, the in these kind of situations, the state does provide some free services to reunite with the child. So once they deem that you're fit enough, I guess, to have your child back, they have services that will help you reunite with your kid. Like a social worker, or not a social worker, excuse me, but like a counselor or
Yeah.
therapist and things like that will help the resolve to get to be more smooth.
Right.
And
The goal would be to like reunify the family and put the family back together typically, right?
right. Well, her representatives asked us to sign a paper saying that we deny those services. We give up those services. We refuse them. And people have asked me, why did you sign that paper? And I said, well, I knew what I was fighting against. You've got to know who your enemy is. My enemy wasn't the state. Wasn't the state. It was my daughter. My daughter was doing this on purpose. She did not want to live with either one of us anymore, because she did have a friend that she wanted to live with who ended up being her foster sister. So her friend's parents actually took her in. And that's another episode, another day. But
Right. Yeah.
We ended up having to sign this paper that said that we give up the services to reunify with our daughter, because she basically said if we did not sign the paperwork, that we would go back to square one and we would discuss his drinking. We would discuss how my ex-husband drank. My ex-husband still drinks.
Yeah.
That he was a violent drunk. Well, he was never really violent about it. I mean, could he get mad? Of course he could get mad. Anybody can get mad.
Yeah.
But I did not want to go back to court and start from square one.
So it's almost like blackmail. Like, sign this or things are going to get worse, and I'm going to make it even more miserable than you already are, kind of thing.
Right, it was. And I've had people even in the church that said, well, why didn't you just go back and talk about his drinking? You should have talked about his drinking. And I said, but I bought the booze for him.
Right.
I can't deny that I did that. I mean, they probably have footage from the grocery store, even though it was many, many years ago, that I bought the...
Yeah, sorry, and she had a certain outcome in her head that she wanted. So it was, you knew that there was just going to be a cycle of, there's going to be no winning in this scenario, because whatever you said or however fought you hot, she was going to come back and fight harder.
Exactly, because you're right. She had a motive. She had an outcome that she had wanted in her mind, and that's how this is going to go.
Yeah.
I feel for parents that are going through that. I don't even know, honestly, even after going through it, I don't know how to say, keep on going. It's going to be fine, because, it was hell. I mean, it's still hell.
Absolutely.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing I've ever been through by far. And being a single parent was not easy, but being this way, and then I've joined a couple groups for estranged parents on Facebook, and you see the terrible things that they're going through with their children in their lives. So it becomes like this catch-22. I mean, my biggest fear and my biggest anticipation in life are one and the same: seeing my daughter again. I dread the day, and I look forward to the day with great anticipation, because I would love to see my child again. I want to see my daughter, but I know what kind of person Ella is, and I know how strong-willed she is, and I know that I don't think it would go as I would like it to go. I don't know. I think I might be one of those parents saying, I can't believe she's saying this stuff about me.
Right.
So
And another thing about the situation that's, was shocking to me was Ella never went to court, right?
No,
Never showed up in court. Everything was, it sounds like everything was done like between attorneys.
right, right. Yeah, she never did. And, neither did the foster parents. The foster parents never had to show up. And one of the reports, we all got interviewed by social workers. I have one actually come up to my home, to my apartment, and sit with me for about an hour and a half and interview me here. And I live miles away from where she was located, but she came out at night to help, with my schedule. And I said, well, maybe we can meet at a restaurant near, closer to where you are. And she said, no, you're going to want to be at home for this. Because she was like, you're going to fall apart, basically, is what she was trying to tell me.
Just another way that you're kind of naive about what was really going on here, right?
Right.
You just didn't really understand the big picture.
I had no idea what was going on. I really didn't. I just thought that this was a lot more common and normal than it really was. And I still, to this day, I've got a lot of questions that don't have any answers. But
right,
this has taught me that that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things in life that God knows, and we're not meant to know.
Right.
We just don't have the privilege of knowing that.
Yeah.
She mentioned
that me and you have talked about with the situation is that how Ella was treated and what weight her words were given to is very much dependent on her age. Because she was 16,
right.
You felt like that situation was very different than if she had been like 6. You may have been treated differently as a parent. How they handled her, how they handled all of this may have been very different. But her being 16 seems to really have affected how this was handled from the get-go.
Yeah, that's true. And where I was going earlier was that when Ella did her interview, she basically told them that she needed to take a break and she needed to rest, and she made it very dramatic, and it was just this terrible, horrible thing that she's been through in her life. And
right,
she made it sound like she had this horrible upbringing and that we were terrible parents. And she really twisted the truth a lot. And
just her age, right? Like,
right,
we've talked about that she had a lot more control of the situation than a kid normally would have.
Right, she did. And because we've seen it on TV. I mean, I watch a lot of Dateline, and there's plenty of cases where people have had their children with them, or they should never have been able to have the child in the first place. They've done something terrible. They've done something, they're up for murder or whatever, and they're able to have their children back, at least on a visitation, and that's to me, it's wrong.
Right.
But again, I can understand where the state is actually coming from, because trying to get my daughter to do anything was damn near impossible. Excuse the
French.
You knew
that. And you knew that from firsthand experience.
Oh, I did, because she came back from the hospital when she was 11 and she was supposed to take medicine, and Ella could not swallow pills. So I gave her, I bought a pill crusher, just like they did at the hospital. They crushed the pills up and put it in applesauce, and she would eat the applesauce. I could not get that child to eat applesauce at home with pills in it to save my life. I mean, I would have had to literally shove it down her throat. It was like, I can't do that, because that's child abuse. So I knew better than to do that, even when she was only 11. So I never did anything that warranted the phone call or anything like that.
Right.
It just was another step in the demise and the tragic situation that we had with my daughter.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, she's very smart. She was a very smart kid. I mean, when she was with me, like I said, she was pretty much failing the 5th grade. I'm surprised she did not have to repeat it. But then when she moved in with her father, I remember the first report card I got after she moved in with her dad. And I remember opening the report card thinking, oh God, I hope it's okay. And I look at the thing, and you know what, Veronica, it was all A's.
Right.
Straight A's across the board. I'm like, dang.
Should you be happy or mad? You don't even know.
I know, right? I'm like, this is great, but this sucks.
Right.
I look like crap right now. I look like a terrible parent.
Those are harsh realities, aren't they?
Yeah. Darn it. She's smarter than I thought.
Right.
And then it makes my mind wonder when going through the whole court case. It makes my mind wonder because I almost think that she knew that the way that she acted in the 5th grade, she would not go to school for me. And I begged her, I cried, I pleaded, I yelled, I bribed her. I mean, I did everything I possibly could to get her to go to school. Now, I had a job that was, 20 minutes away from my apartment, and I had a boss that was watching the clock and watching me and watching the door. I wanted to make sure that I did not lose my job. So,
Right. Yeah.
because that's important.
Absolutely. As a single parent, absolutely.
Right. I had to be able to feed her. So, I would call her out. I would call her out every day that she would not go to school. And I ended up calling her out 45 days in 1 year. And so, your mind kind of wanders. How far back did the planning go for this? Because I know she planned this out. When she planned this out in the 5th grade, when she was only 10, 11 years old.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe she was.
Yeah.
She's smart enough, I think, to have planned it out that far back. But then your mind also asks yourself, how did she feel about me? Did she ever love me? I mean, I hope like when she was 4 and 5, she did, because she said that to me. I love you, Mama.
Right.
Was it
you
a
like
lie?
to think that was true?
It was all a lie. I don't know.
Right.
So I hope some of that has helped. I don't know if I think I just kind of rambled on like a crazy woman, but
you did not. It's it's a very, and I was talking to you while this was going on in real time, and I just kept thinking, this is like a movie. Like I cannot fathom that this is really happening. And one thing that you talked about is, you and Brian never felt like you were in control. Once CPS got involved, you were not in control in any way, shape, or form. And you really didn't have any rights at that point.
No,
even
really
though
didn't.
there wasn't evidence of anything being done wrong, like they couldn't prove that anything bad happened, your rights were just taken away in a heartbeat.
Right. And you mentioned earlier what happened in court. Well, one of the last things that happened in court was when the judge said that Ella would be living with her foster parents, the judge said, well, Miss King, I find you what did he say? He said, I find you non-offensive, meaning I've done nothing wrong. Mm-hmm. You've done nothing wrong, but I still think it's better for your daughter to live with a foster family. Do you understand? And I said, yes, thank you, Your Honor, very much. Thank you.
Right.
And
what else are you going to say?
Right. You have to, especially since they thought I was crazy, I had to really maintain some kind of decorum. Yeah.
Right.
You want to jump up and down and you want to say, what the heck? You just want this obscenity, train coming flying out of your mouth, right?
Yeah.
Flying beep, 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 beep,
Yeah.
What's going on here? Because I always wanted to be a parent. You know me, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a parent. I took childcare classes. I was a babysitter since I was 12. I babysat a lot of kids in my neighborhood. I was going to be an early education teacher. When Ella was a baby, I mean, I was spot on as a parent. I did really good until she was about 4.
Right.
And then it went downhill from there. Because she became smarter than
not
me.
For the faint at heart, for sure.
I think she became smarter than me at 4 years old. And
she figured out.
Knew how to manipulate me. It was not easy.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're right. It's not for the faint of heart. It's something that I think in our generation, we're both pushing 50 close enough.
Yes.
And sorry to give that away.
Yeah. That's reality. I'm accepting it.
Yeah, it is what it is. But I think in our generation, we grew up with, dolls, and we grew up thinking that everybody should go out and have kids and babies and have a family.
And everything will be fine. Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be great. Yeah. I mean, babies are so wonderful, aren't they? And,
yeah.
And then you bring home this 7-pound or 6-pound or 5-pound little bundle, and you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna break it.
Or they might break me. It goes from I might break them, but then it turns into they might break me physically and mentally.
Right. Well, yeah, she came pretty darn close. I mean,
yeah.
I've been to the edge and back, and I'm okay. I've survived it,
Yeah.
I've seen the damage land. I've seen
Yeah.
it can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I was young, my mom always had the poison control number by the phone.
Yep.
And I never understood that until I got to be a parent myself. And then one time
Yeah.
I was at a park with Ella, and she just picked up a flower off the ground. It was one of those little thistle type things, that little tiny flower that you can see all over the place. Pops it in her mouth and just starts chewing it. I'm like, no, I'm right behind her, but I couldn't get my finger in her mouth quick enough.
Right.
She was a toddler, and so she's walking around, she's eating this flower. I'm calling the poison control on my cell phone, because I had the number programmed into my phone. I'm like, she just ate a flower. She just ate a flower. And they're like, okay, what is she doing now? She's getting on the slide. She's getting on the slide. All right, you need to calm down. She's fine. I said, what do you mean? And they're like, well, she's fine. You're going to have a heart attack. So I'm like, I guess you're right. Okay. I'm fine.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us today, and a big thank you to Lisa for talking with us and sharing her story. I will talk with Lisa again next week about the aftermath of the story, about how she faced daily life, the grieving process. So I hope you will join us again. Hang in there. We're all doing the best we can. Have a good week.